Hello and welcome to your first concept video on doing app dev with SwiftUI. SwiftUI is a new way of doing things with respect to laying out and doing user interfaces and user interactions on the iPhone. And it's really kind of revolutionizing how easy it is to do UX and UI on your phone or your iPad or even on a Mac. So let's dive in because this is all the latest technology. And what I want to do is start out with first some just initial concepts that go along with SwiftUI. So first, of course, when you start out and you actually run your first program, which Xcode will write for you as a SwiftUI program, you're going to get a hello world message right in the middle of your screen. And that is showing you that everything is up and running and it's working well, and your SwiftUI components and all of the framework and everything are working properly. Now, when this shows, what's interesting is this hello world right there, this text, if you will, is referred to as a view. And basically everything that you see on your screen, everything on your iPhone, will be a view of some type. There will be different types of views, but they will all be views. And in this case, this is a string, a text string, which is a view. So this is different than just you're putting things in quotes and saying that it's a string like you would in your Swift programming class, okay? This is going to be a little different, and I'll show you why when we actually jump into the code along. But suffice it to say, everything that you see is going to be a view. And the other thing that I want you to understand is that every view has one or more set of modifiers that can be added onto the view. So for example, here in this view, what we've done is we've added some modifiers to make it red, to basically raise the size of the font. We've also made it bold. All of those things are things that come along with modifiers. So keep that in mind. There are views, and then there are modifiers that go on the view itself. So as I said, modifiers such as foreground color, font size, font weight, those types of things. And those are modifiers that are sort of specific, like the font size and the font weight are specific to the fact that this view is a text view. Now, foreground color is a modifier we can apply to a lot of different views to change the color. So the next thing I want to show you is there are all sorts of pre-canned views that you can use. And I'm going to show you when we jump into Xcode how you can find all these and just use them right out of the box. But I'm going to start out with just this example of a rectangle. If you just create a rectangle on the screen, that's all you do, that's your only view, that rectangle just so happens to be one of these views that wants to expand out in all directions. It's going to take up as much space as it can possibly get without interfering with any other views. Now, of course, there are no other views in this display here, and so it takes up the entire screen. Now, it doesn't take up this area right at the top and right at the bottom. Those are referred to as safe areas of your screen because there are things in here that will show various statuses and so forth. But you can even add a modifier to a rectangle that says not only when you go out and expand, I want you to even expand over the safe areas. And so you could cover those areas as well. But in this case, we've just created a rectangle and it's gotten as big as it possibly could. And since we didn't specify a foreground color, it just assumes black. Okay, so that's the color that it's taken on. I can tell you if you were in dark mode, then the default would be white. All right, so with that rectangle, I want to show you how we're going to apply some modifiers to change how this rectangle looks. So here we have a rectangle, and we've added a modifier. And when we write our code, we're really going to kind of indent it and do this dot notation. So this is actually SwiftUI code exactly as you would enter it in Xcode. And here, one of the modifiers is dot foreground color. And then an argument that you pass it is a color. Now, a color is an enumerated type. And so here we've done dot blue, which is referring to the color blue. And so when we do that, we see that our rectangle now is a view, and it has a modifier called foreground color of blue, and it has now become blue. Now, the next thing is well, we don't need a rectangle that big. So we can actually adjust the size of the rectangle. And to do that, there's a frame modifier. And so with frame, it takes two arguments, a width and a height. And in this case, I'm making them the same. They don't have to be, but this makes it a nice square. And this is 100 points in width and 100 points in height. And so the view now is going to shrink down. Remember, it wants to expand as much as it can, but we have constrained it to that particular frame size. The other thing you'll notice is it's in the center of the screen. Since we've given no other layout information to it, these views, if you just pop a view on the screen, it's going to go to the center, okay? And then the third one is corner radius as an example. That's another modifier that we can add onto the view. And in this case, because it is a rectangle and it normally had hard point corners, we can add this modifier corner radius, and I could say you could give it how big that radius is going to be. I use 20 points here. You could use 10 or 5. It's really up to you in how you want it to look on the screen for your particular app. And in this case, once we've done that, we see that now we have a view with this corner radius like it shows there. So again, a view with modifiers, okay? So now let's look at some layout capabilities. So what we can do is we can take views and put them together into another containing view, if you will. And that containing view is the one, or the parent view can be the one that says how we want those child views to be arranged. So for example, right here, I have 3 of those squares, 3 of those rectangles with the corner radius and the modifiers that we just did in the previous one. I've created 3 of them, and I've put them into a parent view, which is this circle right here, and that is called a V-stack. V-stack meaning vertical stack, okay? So we've stacked them here vertically. So when we do this in code, the system will take these and lay these out one on top of another in a vertical fashion. So every view that you put inside the V-stack is going to be put vertically in place. Now there's another way to do it, right? There's the horizontal layout, and that's going to be using the H-stack. So in the H-stack, again, we have the same views, so that code doesn't change, but that outer parent view that these are now child views of, these are inside, will be laid out horizontally instead of vertically. So again, this is a vertical layout. This is a horizontal layout. And then, as you might imagine, there's one more layout type, and that is called a depth layout or a Z-stack. So Z meaning sort of going into like if you had X, Y, and Z for that third dimension. So here we have 3 different views. Now notice these aren't the same views we had before, but they could have been. But I changed the color on them. So I changed that foreground color modifier to a different color, to green and to purple. I also changed the frame. So it maybe still is 100 wide, but it looks like they might be 200 or 300 high. So here we have set these 3 views, and we've put them in a enclosing parent view, and it is a Z-stack. Because it is a Z-stack, the first view mentioned is going to be at the back, and then the next one will be in front of it, and the next one will be in front of it, and it lays them out one after another. So with that, you're going to use these all the time. So it's really important that you fundamentally get your head wrapped around it. And by the way, you can combine these things. I can have H-stacks inside of V-stacks. And Z-stacks. And so you can put these things together in various ways to create different visualizations for your app. So let's look at one. So this is a screenshot off my phone when I just started doing this video. It's from the News app off of Apple. And what it is doing is showing me these little areas here of different stories. And so what I want to do is just at the very high level, take a look at this and see if we can figure out where V stacks and H stacks and even Z stacks might be. So first of all, if I look at this, I see this looks like a row to me. This looks like a row. This looks like a row. And so these things are aligned one on top of another. So the likelihood is this whole thing right here is the enclosing V stack. These are vertically aligned, okay? Now, if I look inside here, I look at this, I see that I have two different views side by side. And so those are going to probably be an H stack because they are aligned horizontally, okay? And the V stack can contain an H stack. So this is this hierarchy of how you can kind of keep building these things up as you go. You start out at the lowest level with this H stack, and then you stick it as a view inside a V stack along with these views right here. So this and this and this are all kind of at the same level. These views are down one level inside the H stack. Let's try one more. So here, what containers do we see? Well, let's see. Right here in the center is where I'm kind of interested in. And so I kind of see this and this and this, and they look very vertical to me, right? So I'm going to say that's probably a V stack. But then as I examine this more closely, I see inside here, I have two things side by side. So I think H stack. So the H stack is inside the V stack. And here I have these two views side by side. Do we see any other H stacks? Well, yeah, I do. Right down here, for example, I see a bunch of them. Then this looks like another V stack of H stacks, if you will, because I see all these little things side by side, these elements. Every one of these, like this text right here, is a text view. This is a circle view with a number 14 in it, okay? So all of these things are put side by side in what's referred to as the H stack. Okay. Now, these are combined to have a V stack, and so this is now a V stack within another V stack because it's this subsection right here that creates that V stack. And then finally, if we look at this, we have text, which is a view, over an image, which is a view, and notice how the text is on top of the image. So therefore, we're using a Z stack to create this effect. And the view that is the image is the first one listed inside a Z stack because it starts at the back and moves forward. And then the text is next. And so when this lays out for us on the screen, we will get this overlay. So that's just briefly touching the very topmost elements of SwiftUI, VStack, HStack, and ZStack, and text, and what we're in a rectangle. And so what we're going to do now is I want you to go through the code along, and let's build up some of this in code.